All right. Here we are. How you feeling, man?
Better. I've still got a wee bit of a headache and some pain in my lower jaw from getting the fucker yanked.
I'd imagine.
I suppose that. Sorry about that. I already
See,
cussed
monkey.
within 10 seconds. But oh my god, my camera is filmed as crap. Sorry about that.
It's probably light.
For those of you unaware, we were going to have a show Wednesday, but I had to have an emergency extraction of a molar yanked out of my skull because the nerve had gotten infected.
Oh, damn.
And yeah, it had been a long time coming, and I knew it was already loose in there. And it was causing me enough pain that I could not see straight. Even with my glasses off, my vision was twinning. So I messaged my wife and told her, "You got to come home. I got to get to the dentist now and get this fucker pulled."
Insane.
So I got in there and they said, "Well, how long has it been since you saw a dentist?" And I said, "Well, to be honest, tell the truth and shame the devil, it's been about 21 years. And they're like, "Okay, well, we can kind of tell from this x-ray." I was like, "Yeah, I've lost a few teeth, some of them by my own hand. I've, just when they get loose enough, I just go and reach in and yank them, either with my hands or with a pair of pliers."
Yeah.
And also known as Russian or Irish dentistry. And they informed me, "Well, this wouldn't have been so bad, but the nerve itself on your molar is dying from infection. That is why you are experiencing so much pain. Unlike some of the others, it looks like you removed by hand. It looks like those nerves." Colin, could you not do that? Could you stop? Thank you. Where they had just died out from damage, from wear and tear, from the tooth dying and decay. Those nerves die pretty much at a normal rate. When a nerve dies from infection, it dies slowly. It slows down the process of the nerve dying and sending signal.
That sounds horrible. Oh boy. If I remember last, we were going to start with 5 and 6, right?
Episodes 5 and 6, yes. Because and now the dog is here. Let me see here. I think I marked it. No. Yeah, episode 5, The Past. I've got my notes here handy. My oldest daughter is trying to help me by wrangling her little brother. and he's being quite the pip about it, which is a polite way of saying he's being an asshole. Like, God damn things. Set the glasses up there. Do you need something, Colin? You need a snack? Can you get him something, Avery? He's got to pick it out for himself or he's going to throw a freaking tantrum. You know, I love these kids. I love them to death. But they give me no room or time to just be a human being. But that's the trade-off. That's being a parent. That comes first. It's also why I've tried to talk to my kids and tell them, look, there's going to be times, not very often, where dad needs to do his own thing. Leave me alone when I'm doing my thing.
Uh-oh.
Hold on a second.
That don't sound good. So as he's doing what he's doing, welcome everybody. I see we got 2 people watching so far. We're here to discuss Fallout. This is a thing we do called the Deep Dives. And myself, I'm Cortex, and we have ByronOfSidius. And we're nerds.
Yep, we are geeks. We are nerds. And for this particular dive, we are diving deep into the Amazon Bethesda Studios television production and presentation of the Fallout television series adaptation, which is based upon the games, yet with quite a few issues in terms of adhering to the lore and mythology that has been used to shape the world building of Fallout thus far. In terms of our analysis and critique thus far and continuing forward throughout this installment and more than likely the next installment, which will probably be the last in our analysis and critique of this series, I would refer to Brother Cortex as the Fallout lore master in regards to critique of this series, whereas I am a straight up mythologist and storyteller and a literary analyst. My familiarity with the Fallout lore and mythology is not as thorough as Cortex's. So he has been viewing this program, this series, as a lore and mythology and historian purist of the source material, whereas I have been viewing and critiquing it from the lens of a storyteller, author, and narrative critique lens. We don't always have the same analyses or observations of the series because we are approaching it from 2 slightly different angles. However, there's a lot of overlap, a lot of crossover, where both of us find ourselves going, what the fuck were you people thinking?
Very much so.
Now, that's twice now I've dropped the F-bomb already in the first 10 minutes, but we are now officially past the 10-minute mark. So
We indeed are.
Open fire now. So
Yeah.
The Past, episode 5.
I'm trying to think because there is a scene with Maximus that I was just thinking about. And yeah, I think it's further in to my knowledge, but it has to do with Shady Sands.
Okay, the Shady Sands bit.
It's how he was found by the
Yeah.
Brotherhood.
I'm trying to find if I have. Yeah, I don't have the exact minute marker tagged for that.
Because I don't want to tap into that unless it's, like if it's later on, but I can't remember if it was this episode or next.
It may have been episode 6, the trap. But episode 6, actually, the start of it, at least, we'll get to that in a minute, started, I thought, beautifully with the kind of the promotional commercial for Vault 6 or for Vault 4. But episodes 5, the past, actually begins with a scene that we started talking about and going heavily after in our last installment. It's the campfire kind of regaling over their victory between Maximus and Thaddeus. Regaling their victory over the glomper, the swallowing thing.
With the fingers.
It's and you know that moment, it started off with this moment of camaraderie, which I thought was really telling and indicative of the kind of camaraderie you would find in a monastic militaristic organization. These brothers in arms have scored a victory, not only in defeating the glomper and saving one of them from what was probably going to be certain horrific death in the digestive acids of this thing's guts. But it also coughed up the head of Wilzig, the very MacGuffin that they've all been chasing after. And that's another quick little side note. Wilzig / Wilzig's head is a MacGuffin. What is a MacGuffin? In popular literature and sci-fi, fantasy, horror, whatever genre you choose, a MacGuffin is a type of trope specifically, well, not specifically, but it's especially heavily used in television shows and films.
The plot device.
Right. It's an unspecified plot device. It's an item or an object of power or import that is only vaguely known much about early on in the show, but everybody wants to get it because it is a game-changing object of power of some sort. How much is known about the MacGuffin varies from genre to genre. Typically, in fantasy, the MacGuffin's effects are a thing of legend, where there are epic myths and legends attached to the MacGuffin, what it can do for the wielder, its effects. In sci-fi, however, the MacGuffin tends to be a little bit more vague. Not a lot of details are given about what exactly it can do. And when it does show up in horror, which, again, is not frequent, but MacGuffins do show up in horror, it's almost always known down to a T. It's described what the MacGuffin does. We see this in the television show Supernatural all the time when they talk about the first blade, that it is the first weapon wielded by Cain when he slew Abel. When the rings of the horsemen earlier on in the series are described, it's told exactly what they can do, that they can bind the horsemen and they can be used to bind death. There's a thorough explanation of what these objects of power ultimately can do when MacGuffins are included in horror.
I'm sorry, but when you keep bringing up MacGuffin, I could not help but think of this. I had to bring it up.
Only hope for our world. The fate of everyone in this vault lies in your hands.
Exposition. I don't care.
We need you to find the fabled MacGuffin.
I just want to play the game.
You want to fail at your mission.
Skip.
Everyone in this vault shall perish.
Ooh, finally. That took a while.
Nice.
I could not help it.
See, no one is safe from the MacGuffin.
So, you bringing that up though about the head of the doctor?
Mm-hmm.
My kind of like pet peeve with the show is, even though that is the quote unquote MacGuffin that we have right now, how come the water chip wasn't also a MacGuffin device?
Oh, it really could have been.
Right.
It really almost ostensibly should have been. But I think what they did was they wanted to use that as an Easter egg, kind of a nod to
Fallout 1.
longtime fans of the franchise, as sort of a, hey, we recognize that you're part of our target audience too. Okay, if you really gave a shite about the original audience, you shouldn't have completely bent over and dry hog raped the entire intellectual franchise the rest of the show. I'm sorry if that seems really off-putting, but that's what they did. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
Right.
They literally used Fallout 1 in that aspect as toilet paper.
Yeah.
And there was not even an inch of that toilet paper that wasn't coated in fine brown.
They treated Fallout 1 like Monty treated the window drape.
Mm-hmm.
They wiped their dick with it.
Yeah. They defaced those curtains.
Now, back to I've got my bullet train ticket straight to hell right here. So it doesn't take long into the episode before Maximus finally decides to reveal himself to Thaddeus. As I was watching the show, I wasn't sure when he was finally going to get around to revealing himself, because I figured it would have to happen eventually. Because at some point, he's going to have to come out of this suit for maintenance or to use the bathroom or whatever. Something was going to compel him to get out of that suit. He would have to show himself to Thaddeus. The fact that he decided to do it himself looked like it might have been a moment of redemption for the character. But
honesty.
It fell apart. However, the moment he said the words, "We just have to get our stories straight."
Mm-hmm.
Boom. That immediately reveals to me as a viewer, this guy wants to continue to dissemble, to fash on, and to lie about what happened. He wants to deceive the Brotherhood now. Not just the world around him, but the very people to whom this armor belongs and to whom he is ostensibly a member. It's not about just doing the right thing. It's he wants to get away with it. Mm-hmm. He wants to get away with what he did. I'm sorry. At that point, he completely crossed the line from me into an irredeemable character.
Thaddeus had every right to be the way he was, but the problem, and again, how everything transpires from that point on when he does find out, and Maximus is trying to coax him into the lie, was Thaddeus winds up getting his foot crushed, right?
Yeah.
But proceeds to find the key to the fusion core for the power armor.
Well, I thought he already had it on his person.
Well, he did, but when was that ever a thing?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know as that ever was.
Because in Fallout 4, you just, you took the fusion core and you just kind of punched it into the socket, and then the armor opened up and you climbed inside.
You got, again, one of those, I think they just wrote it in as a plot mechanism in order to move the story forward, which is unnecessary if you're trying to be true to the source material. But again, I don't think these writers gave much of a shit about the source material.
Well, see, that's the thing, is Bethesda, their whole concept of that came from Bethesda with the fusion core.
Right.
So, I don't know. It's just weird that all of a sudden now we have keys that can literally pull out the fusion core.
Right. It's something I think the writers and showrunners on the show wanted to put in there in order to create tension within the dynamic of their program.
I guess what I'm saying is it turns the armor into almost like a joke. Because it's like, well, if you got that key, all I got to do is wander around this wobbling idiot and
Right. Get behind him.
pull
and
it out.
Right. Get behind him, and suddenly it turns into a giant metal coffin.
Right.
And that was another thing that really kind of bugged me out is, wouldn't the standard protocol be that if the core is forcibly ejected,
The suit still opens up.
The suit would open up and
Mhm.
eject the pilot?
Yep.
Seems like a pretty serious design flaw.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Is like when you ran out of your fusion core for the power armor in Fallout 4, because that's when they introduced the fusion core for the armor. If you ran out, your armor just completely stopped. And you got out of the armor.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, took your fusion core, what are you going to do?
Yeah. So then we get a little bit more Deus Ex Machina with Lucy just happening to come upon Maximus.
Yeah.
And shooting off the rad roaches that were trying to make their way into the armor.
With their Fallout 4 version of her 10mm pistol.
Yep. And I had noted that when I was watching through, this is when I finally recognized she had unzipped the upper portion of her jumper
Mm-hmm.
to kind of reveal that she is becoming more like a wastelander.
Mm-hmm.
She is accepting that she is part of this world now outside of the vault. But even facing death, being stuck in the suit, Maximus misrepresents himself to this complete stranger as Knight Titus, further cementing my idea of fuck this guy. And the Radaway bag was well implemented.
Yeah, they did very good with that, I think.
Yep.
But yeah, like you said with Maximus, his whole presentation at this point is, I'm a fucking liar, and I'm going to do what I can to get what I want, to be Knight Titus.
Right, to have that title and that prestige.
Entitlement, yep.
You talk about how the last guy didn't deserve his armor. Well, you haven't fucking earned it either.
No. Not at all. Not at all.
Let's see. The next scene I wanted to kind of dive into a little bit here with episode 5 is the bridge. When Maximus
Oh boy.
goes to the bridge. And yeah, crossing that rail bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Lucy's hesitation here, meeting other travelers on the road, seems or strikes me as quite reasonable, even expected.
Yep.
I appreciated her glowering at Maximus when he lied and claimed that they were unarmed, basically saying, with a look like it's wrong of you to lie to these people. And she even calls him out on it. She says, but we are armed. You're lying. And he's like, so are they probably.
But I get it, though. I mean...
Right. I understand why he deceives here, because he's been living up here. He knows these people. Mm-hmm. It's another nice...
He doesn't live with the golden rule.
Right. It's a nice kind of display, for me at least, of Lucy is still naive, but she's getting a little bit more cautious. She's getting a little bit more wary of everybody she might meet topside. And she did have a good idea. It might have worked, doing opposite sides of the tracks, arms over the head so that hands are empty. And it might have worked, but for the sight of her Pip-Boy. Because these fiends, they see a Pip-Boy on a young woman's wrist. They're thinking, Vault Dweller? Cannibals seeing a Vault Dweller. That's like seeing a prime beef plate just wafting across your nose. It's no wonder that they decided, oh, we're going to take ourselves some good eats today. So,
Yeah, but here's the thing I had a problem with their costume design
what's that?
is fiends normally wear a Brahmin skull on their head.
Right. In New Vegas,
And they have thinner clothing.
they had like the padded leather armor that
Mhm.
wasn't very heavy, wasn't very thick. I imagine to contend with the heat of the Mojave, the dry, acrid environment. But I also know, they always had the adornments. They had the animal skulls, and some of them even had like scapulas and stuff for their
Yep.
shoulder pauldrons and what have you. Which had, to me at least, an intriguing as from an anthropological angle. It's fascinating that they kind of devolved into this old world tribal
Yep.
practice. But yeah, these fiends had none of that.
Mhm.
Later on, they have the implementation of, hey, there was a rotted tooth in the bullet. It's like, ballistically, that wouldn't work. But okay, we'll grant you your fantasy element for now.
But here's the thing, though.
Drove me fucking crazy.
Like, iconography-wise, like I was just saying, like, most fiends have the fucking hat or the helmet, They have a Brahmin skull on top of them, which represents they're part of the fiends. They had no idea knowing that they were fiends. They could have been just any other cannibals.
Right. And this brings me back to, again, the question of certain terminology getting thrown about, bandied about by these characters in a way that's not consistent. As you very well know, as the lore expert here, that's not consistent with what has been established from the video.
They were more prevalent around New Vegas than they were anything.
Right. So if you're going to have fiends in California, is there going to be any explanation that maybe this is an offshoot of the fiends, that it's a different branch? I mean,
I'm just saying they could have been any raider gang. And hell,
Right.
even the fiends aren't the only other raider gang that are cannibals.
No.
So
and you have non-raiders who are cannibals. In Fallout 3, there's this small, like, family shack.
Yep.
I can't remember where. I think it's in like the northwestern quadrant of the map. It's out in the complete boonies.
Are you talking about 3 or New Vegas?
It's in Fallout 3.
Yeah, Fallout 3, I remember.
This family, like an older gentleman, an older lady, and like a middle-aged guy. They're living together in a home.
That's going to bug me. Hold on.
They invite you in for dinner. And they say, oh, it's been a long time since we had someone over for dinner. And there's kind of a weird, creepy vibe. And if you like pick the lock on the refrigerator, you find plates that are filled with human flesh.
Yep.
And they attack you with rippers.
Yep.
It's like, oh, y'all are a bunch of cannibals. All right.
Yep, it's when you go to Arafu.
Yeah,
It's the settlement that's built on the bridge.
Yep.
Yeah, quest was called Blood Ties.
There we go.
Yep. They were all in a subway together, and they considered each other family, and they were trying to add more people to their family.
I found the note. You were right. It is in this episode, possibly.
Okay.
So
we'll come to it. I'll talk about that point when we come to that one.
Okay. Because I've only got one other note in here to touch upon after the incident with the cannibals on the bridge.
All right.
It was back in Vault 33. This line, this kind of adage that everybody uses. Quote, when things look glum, vote for someone from Vault 31. It's almost like a programmed response for people. And it's fitting that Norm is the one who questions this. He continues, for my liking, to be one of the better written characters in the series. Also, it seems like there's often a crisis just before an election. Is it possible that these crises are engineered to occur around the time that they need new leadership? Or is it perhaps taking advantage of a crisis like any good politician?
Mm-hmm.
Don't let a good crisis go to waste. That tends to be the thinking of certain left-leaning politicians, shall we say, which
Right.
would make sense given the leanings, the obvious leanings of the writers of the show. Sorry, it just gets so much more obvious, and I cannot wait to scream blood when we get there.
Yeah.
Um,
There was something I had to add though too. I'm trying to think and remember because like I'm piecing this together. Norm also brought up to, I believe it was her name was Nancy, the chick with the eye patch.
hold up, the eye patch, because I've got her. She also was from Vault 31.
Right. And there's a point I'm about to bring up.
Because she does have a, yeah. I'll go bring up your point. More important.
Norm asked, like, because obviously their dad being from Vault 31 as well,
Right.
and he said to her
Stephanie.
that, yeah, what was it?
Stephanie.
Okay, I thought it was Nancy for some reason. Like he asked her like what was different between the vaults, like what was, and she said, well, I thought the mashed potatoes were a little bit better.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of odd. And then as him and the other guy, like
Chet.
as they were Chet. Okay, I'm having trouble with the names, but they ventured into the vault, and you notice how everybody was strangling each other or killing themselves or trying to break out of the vault.
Yeah.
Was there something in the food and only a few people knew? So they only ate the mashed potatoes because it was probably the only safe food, while the others freaked out and killed each other?
It's very possible. Again, with Vault 32, I tend to still hang to the hypothesis that what was done to them was a version of the Rat Utopia experiment.
I remember the TV being played.
Yep. And
but you got to think though, the one person stuck a fork in the toaster.
Right.
The vault overseer was like wrapped with a bunch of stuff with a bunch of wonder glue around them.
Yeah. What I imagine,
and smiling.
Yeah, what I imagine happened was because remember in the Rat Utopia experiment, there were one of the biggest problems was the clique of rats that became feral and homicidal.
Right.
And then there were rats that became suicidal, that sought out their own destruction and their own death and demise. There were mother mice that shortly after giving birth to their babies, they turned infanticidal and killed and ate their own offspring. So the comparison just holds a lot more strongly to me there. I suspect the reason that Stephanie made the comment about the mashed potatoes is because she is covering for the fact.
Well, that's what I think.
Yeah, she's
covering for something.
Right, for the fact that she is herself never been in a vault before she was brought out of cryo in order to take a place in Vault 33. Okay. What confuses me about her case is she's from Vault 31.
Right.
Why did they bring her out of cryo? Because it seems like from what Norm saw in the files, the data files, in Vault 32, or sorry, Vault 31 when he did the override, is that...
So that's how he found out about the mom's Pip-Boy being used.
Right. What he found out from doing the override on the Overseer's console in his own vault is that each time someone is brought to Vault 33 from Vault 31, Shortly thereafter, they are elected overseer of Vault 33.
Mm-hmm.
But we had Lucy's dad and Betty both were in Vault 33 at the same time. So is there one that's voted overseer and another one brought in as kind of a second hand to help run the experiment or oversee things? They don't really specify. It's not, there doesn't seem to be a logic there to it.
I have a theory about Betty,
Sure.
but I want to wait till we get to that point later on
Okay.
because that has something to do with Cooper.
All right. So let's go now, if you're cool with it, to the billboard.
Yep.
28 minutes and 41 seconds in. The Shady Sands billboard. Capital of the new California Republic, established 2142. I turn it to you as the historian.
Oh man. So that depends as far as founding. Like, are you talking about founding as in just starting off, like the actual Adobe?
That's what's on the billboard sign. It says established 2142.
Okay, so I don't have all the times off the top of my head, but I'll get to that here in just a second. You said 2142?
That's what it says on the billboard, yeah. I'll be right back.
So, okay. Oh man, that's see, that's kind of got me thinking right now. 2142, but it's saying here that never mind. That is right. That's actually correct. So
Sorry.
you said 2142. It says here by 2161, it was a small, thriving, completely self sufficient community. As they managed to adapt some of the wasteland soil to support crops, primarily corn and cabbage. So, yeah, that's when they started. It wasn't until 2241 that it became the capital of New California.
Okay, so maybe I just read the sign wrong.
Okay.
That's very possible.
Right.
Remember, I was watching on a phone screen, so could very well be I just read the sign wrong. I could have it off. That's something that's very possible.
So, okay. Are we discussing the lore of Shady Sands here? Like what?
Well, this is something I imagine that you would want to extrapolate.
So, yeah, it was started by Aradesh and Tandy. Tandy would be the one that had taken over after Aradesh's death, which would have been a little after. Like they just started out with like the hub and like several other settlements. They'd gathered together and formed like a trader caravan styled agreement, which then became a bigger agreement of a government like nature. So between Fallout Show and Fallout 1, this area was nowhere near a city. It was completely out in the open. And the vault that you start out in Fallout 1 that's literally the first settlement that you come across. There's nothing around. It is literally walls and adobe huts. And maybe some Brahmins shitting in a yard. There's a guy that holds a pipe rifle in the front. You talk to him, do like a couple quests killing rad scorpions, and kind of go on your way from there after rescuing Tandy from the cons. So, I guess my issue is with the lore between the game and the show that I have is, like I said, the location in which they set she stands in. Like I said, we're talking the middle of nowhere, nothing around. It was nuked. But when it was nuked, it was around a time when it was very well governed.
Right.
Which brings up Maximus, when the Brotherhood found Maximus.
Right, coming out of a fridge.
A fridge, right. So in Fallout 4, when you play as Nate, and you sign the paperwork over to Vault-Tec with the representative at the door, you later on find that same representative in a fridge, and he was ghoulified. How the fuck is Maximus not ghoulified?
It's a good question. And one that they really don't address at all.
Right.
And given that Fallout 4 is the most recent in the timeline before this show is set to begin.
That's what the tribal in Fallout 2 would call them, because he was a little special. He was like a big kid.
Okay.
You called him Moo-Moos.
Gotcha.
You had to save his Moo-Moos from rad scorpions.
Nice. But yeah, it begs the question. If we have this established mechanic of how it would work, why didn't you carry it into the show? Given that Fallout 4 is, according to Amazon/Bethesda, in terms of their timeline, events of Fallout 4 are what comes just before Fallout show. What happened in that gap to change the mechanics? Oh yeah, somebody got a paycheck to write a shit show.
Hold on 1 second. Vault-Tec representative. It's gonna blow your mind when I show you this.
And for anybody watching later on or watching right now, please be aware. I am not going to spend the entire time shitting all over this show.
Nor am I, but there are inconsistencies.
But there's a lot to shit on.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like the show does things well, but there's a lot it could have done better. It could have done way better. But anyhow, here's what I was talking about as far as the Vault-Tec representative. So if, like you said, if Bethesda had their hand in this, making this show, why did Maximus come out of a fridge after being blasted with a nuke as a human instead of a ghoul? So this is Fallout 4. This came out way before the show.
Good morning. Vault-Tec calling.
Vault-Tec? Remind me again.
Why, we're about you, ma'am, and helping secure your future. You see, Vault-Tec is the foremost builder of state-of-the-art underground fallout shelters.
Now, mind you, he had the unfortunates of not being able to secure a spot in the vault. He's met outside by the men in power armor with miniguns pointed at him as he's demanding to get in. So later on, after you see that happen, you find him. But when you find him, he was in a fridge, which this isn't the video I was trying to bring up, but you do find him in a fridge.
He's a ghoul.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, I can see from the picture there.
Right.
What I'd like to know is why would you still continue to wear the same kind of clothes?
Or better yet,
This is the story of
no, it wasn't him. It was a kid that you actually find because there was a ghoul family that was literally trying to find their kid, but you find the kid in the fridge.
Billy the Kid in a fridge. Southeast of Jamaica Plain, close to a military convoy, you hear a voice calling out to you from the side of the road.
Someone there? I can hear you. Get me out of this thing.
Is someone in there?
Let me out.
Who are you?
My name is Billy. Please. I've been trapped in here for so long.
How did you end up in there?
I hid in here to get away from the bombs. But there isn't a handle on the inside, and it's really dark in here.
The bombs were over 200 years ago. You're that old?
I don't know how long I've been in here. A long time, though. A really long time. Please. I don't want to die in here.
You might be lying.
I'm not, I swear. I got inside to be safe. Now I can't get out. If I try something, you can shoot me.
No way. You're lying.
You son of a bitch. You can't do this. Don't leave me here.
Let me think about it.
You're just gonna leave me in here? Don't go. Come back.
You still there?
Let me out.
I'm just looking for the mayonnaise. Maybe you could grab it for me. Second shelf, right next to the pudding.
That's not funny. That's not funny.
Anyhow, when you let him out, there is a kid in there.
Thanks for nothing.
The second, of course, is to agree to take him under your wing and help him.
So you see what I'm saying here, right?
Yeah. If Maximus had survived, he should have been a ghoul.
Right. It was a nuclear blast. Mind you, if you look in the back of that fridge, there is clearly a vent in the back of that fridge that is open. Meaning, Fallout had to come through.
Yeah.
He had to be getting doses of radiation through it.
Dosed with radiation.
Right. Hold on.
So, I'm almost through my notes for episode 5 here.
Yeah, I have to show this for context.
Sure.
Because to me, I fully believe it matters in this case. Look at that.
Yeah, you can see it. You can see it right. Oh, yeah, you can't see where I'm pointing on screen. But you can see the vent.
Yeah.
He should have been a ghoul.
Mm-hmm.
Plot armor. It's plot armor. He doesn't need power armor. He has plot armor.
But yeah, he only has a cut on his head.
Okay, so moving along through the episode, I initially kind of flinched at Lucy so eagerly going into a Vault-Tec-owned medical facility. But I had to gut check myself. Because even though I know what Vault-Tec is really all about, even though we all know what Vault-Tec is really all about, she still doesn't at this point in the show.
Right.
Her willingness to trust to the products and facilities of Vault-Tec was foundationally established and maintained since birth, after all. So this is in keeping with her character, and thus I would point to that as a marker of decent writing and characterization. But of course, at the end of the episode, what she says to Maximus kind of makes me shiver a little bit, because she says, "We're in the best place in the world. We're in a vault." Lucy, you're about to learn that's not always a great thing.
Yeah.
But the other thing that before the end of the episode that made me kind of grumble a little bit was at 35-minute and 15-second mark, Betty's talk to the community about healing together to rebuild together. It smelled of deep propaganda to me.
You know what it smelled like to me? Hello, we're from the government. We're here to help.
Help. Yeah. Ronald Reagan may have been many things near the end of his time, including senile as shit, but that was a great line.
Mm-hmm.
But Norm even towed the line with Betty near the end, knowing what he knew. Again, great character work that he's willing to kind of intellectually, verbally get right up to the line of, I know something's up. I know you're up to something. I just can't prove it. It was just great character work for me. But it shows that Betty needs to be a little bit more cautious with him because he knows something is up. He and Chet had snuck into Vault 32 before, so what kind of cat's paw game is being played here? But that brings me, at least, to the end of my notes for episode 5, which, all in all, is kind of a middling episode. Nothing enormous for me came away from it in terms of ups or downs. It was just kind of a meh episode.
Yeah.
With developments.
It was very much a filler episode.
Yeah. Episode 6, however, The Trap. Holy shit. You want to talk about double, triple, quadruple entendre for calling this episode The Trap?
Yeah.
Look, we are 6 episodes deep. If you've gotten to this point, there's already been some hints sprinkled in of some of the secret sauce that the showrunners and writers of this program are working towards making you suckle down like Mac sauce with steroids and crank and jet laced within it so that you can swallow their ideological horse shit whole.
That didn't fit very well as I was sipping on my strawberry shake here.
Sorry. It was kind of nice coincidental.
It was. I'm sitting here like...
Right. Just one more. All right.
Man.
So I applauded the beginning of this episode, starting with this black and white commercial for Vault 4, particularly this early Freudian slip visual at 2 minutes and 4 seconds in, where the first labeled door hatch inside the vault as they're touring it says test subjects. It's clearly visible off to the left-hand side of the frame. It's maybe a little too on the nose for those of us familiar with the lore of Vault Tech already, but for viewers who are new to the series or unfamiliar, this wouldn't be difficult to pick up on either. Because, A, this episode is entitled The Trap. B, it starts with a pre-war commercial for Vault Tech vaults, which we know goes hand in hand with war propaganda.
Yep.
C, viewers have already seen how cynical that company can be with their whole Plan B and Plan D products.
Yep.
Context clues count. This opening, while really great for character building for Cooper, frankly, on the world building front, for those purposes, is an asinine and redundant display of the writers of this show clearly think the audience is either a bunch of disaffected retards with no capacity for holding what they've seen before, or they don't care. Sorry, that's my opening.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem with this show is like, with the writers, you can definitely tell that they didn't write the show for the fans of Fallout. I mean, it's kind of like one pant leg in, one pant leg out. So like you said,
Well,
you know,
I don't know who they wrote it for, because like I said, even for newcomers, for people who didn't play the games, you've already got everything you've seen up to this point from the first 5 episodes. By now you should have some impression of how things really work with the world building lore. You're just being redundant at this point. It's repeating itself as if, hey, hello, McFly, are you listening? Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you get it? It's like that kid who constantly has to say, do you get the joke? Do you get it? Do you get it? Like, no, I got it when you said the joke. Now you're
Yeah,
just
like we
fucking
get it.
saying.
Vault-Tec is a bunch of monsters, you know.
Right.
We understand that.
Right. By now, we get it. We
Mhm.
get it. You don't have to drill so hard at this now. You've not just struck pay dirt, you went past pay dirt, and now are draining the fucking oil field.
Yeah, I mean, just for the sake of character building, I mean, I think it's somewhat necessary for Cooper because, you know, he is the face of,
Right.
you know, Vault-Tec and whatnot. But,
And that's
you
where
know,
you could take away 1 point in
right.
each direction.
That's the only plus to me.
And that's what
It's just the character building of Cooper.
right. And I did mention that here. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's good for character building for Cooper. I dove a little bit into semiology back in the pilot episode. Remember, I went on that whole tangent about angel numbers.
Yep.
And I found myself doing it a little bit again here at the 2-minute and 30-second mark. I was inclined to do so during this advertisement. Once again, to posit that there might be 1 or 2 people in the writer's room who have their shit together.
They probably cringe at the other ideas, I would have to imagine.
Right. They got to be going like, oh, fuck that, but let's work in something artistic and decent.
Yeah.
Because if they are there, they are experts of subtlety. And it's much more likely that I am just being an over-analytical fool. Also a possibility.
It's also possible from a lore perspective that I'm doing the same.
Yeah. There is a shot in this moment at the 2-minute and 30-second mark. The audience can see Residence Unit 429 on the left and on the right, 428. Cooper is saying during the advertisement, his line is, comes with all the modern amenities you've come to expect from our rip-roaring republic. Now, first of all, that's clever for double entendre purposes, since America is a constitutional republic and China is known as the People's Republic of China. It's kind of a dualistic bit of language. Vault-Tec may have been trying to play both sides of the fence there. I don't know.
It's probably just saying, well, our republic's better.
Right. But anyhow, in angelic numerology, 429 means that God's angels fully support and are guiding your chosen path. Angel number 428 assures one of financial security and the fulfillment of material needs. Now, there's a reason why later in the episode, I suspect 1 or 2 people on the writing staff were very possibly trying to thread that line through the storytelling visual techniques.
See, I never picked up on that.
I'll buffer that with later on at the episode how this episode ends when we get there. Unless you want me to just kind of jump ahead.
No, I was actually, that's crazy because like I didn't think of it like that, but as I'm reviewing it right now, I was looking at the mailboxes and seeing the numbers. Yeah, that's crazy. It's basically stating like those are chosen by Vault-Tec. Like they're almost kind of like calling themselves like they're the maker in a sense. That's the way I perceive.
I gotta check on the kiddos.
Okay.
I heard a thump up there. Give me a minute.
Oh boy. So, as he was saying that, like 428 would be, you know, the financial portion of that, meaning, yeah, they're chosen, but given a certain amount of financial gain and income, that's how they became chosen. Now, the real chosen would happen to be higher ups of Vault-Tec and oh, hey, buddy.
The thump was not. No one died.
That's good. No casualties.
No, it was apparently it was the dog jumping off the couch.
I was kind of going in like a little, not kind of a tangent. I was about to say rant, but more of a tangent.
Tangents are good.
Just kind of based on what you said about 429 and 428. So I was thinking of it like this, like the higher ups of Vault-Tec would be the portion of 429, which would be the chosen to be able to fulfill the spots of a vault in the safety of a vault. And the financial portion would be 428, which would be the people who would spend the money to claim a spot in the vault.
Okay, yeah, because they would be on the right path, quote unquote.
Right.
And again, that ties into the notion that one or two people who were running this show may very well have had some artistic integrity.
And honestly, like I said, I never picked up on it like that, but it makes sense.
And I'm going to go ahead and wrap it into the at the end of the episode when, or rather later on in the episode, when Maximus is clearly enjoying the pampering lifestyle that can be enjoyed living in this Vault 4.
Yeah.
He is granted. Which
him over there just laying there all lavish with popcorn,
Right. But when he gets that Pit Boy, he is assigned to Unit 428. He's assigned to the very unit that assures financial security and fulfillment of material needs if you follow angel numerical theory.
Mm.
So it goes right hand in hand with the philosophy that would be where he would go to get his material needs or desires met. He puts on the terry cloth bathrobe and he watches a video of just a waterfall. Yep. His worries are forgotten, pushed behind him, because that's what this temptation has led him to.
Yeah, he's on more of a path of being promised in his own head that he would be reaping rewards out of his, I want to say, not greed, but selfishness.
Right, selfishness and maybe a little bit of laziness, because
that too, yeah.
The woman who is in charge of assigning this vault or this dorm to him, what does she say to him when she hands over the Pit Boy? She says, "There's nothing wrong with, quote, a little bit of comfort." How tempting is that to someone who has lived their entire life in the hard scrabble of the wasteland? And she damn well knows it.
I mean, why don't you ask Monty?
Look at Monty.
Wipe his dick on the fucking curtains.
God.
He's right at home.
So brutal. Just so...
It was such a Raider thing to do, though.
It was. In terms of those little details, I want to know the one or two people in that writer's room who were responsible for all of these little things, because I guarantee you it's a small handful of folks who were not appreciated well enough while they were there. They probably did the majority of the heavy lifting for the genuinely artistically beautiful and sound moments throughout this program. They need to be pulled out and handed a better project. They really do, because they deserve it. That's why I can't shit on every moment of this show.
No, I can't either. I mean, there's very good moments in the show. I mean, hell, even the ghouls at the Super Duper Mart, I still think they were very well done.
Oh, yeah. Brilliantly. So, do you have any other comments there on the early part of the episode?
Not too much. I mean, aside from, I think the Vault-Tec commercial is done very well.
Yeah.
I think whoever did that segment was phenomenal.
Yeah. The flashbacking to Cooper after all that commercial stuff
It's
Yeah.
kind of refreshing though if you think about it. Like going in between the wasteland, like post-apocalypse and pre-apocalypse. Like it's kind of refreshing to look
Yeah.
back and go back and forth.
It really was. And the transition was done pretty
Yeah.
well, especially given who they used as the character to focus on that with Cooper.
Yeah.
This was really great backstory building for this character.
Right.
In terms of who got the best treatment out of this episode, it was definitely Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
His character building was solidly done throughout this episode. Showing how much he dotes on his dog Roosevelt, how the movie, I mean, you want to talk about doting on the dog and being, that kind of guy. The movie poster in his home, he's a celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
He's a movie star.
Yep, cowboy.
And the poster at the top of the stairs in his home is a man and his dog. That's why he gave the stim pack to CX404, not just out of pure utility.
Man's best friend.
Right. That part of his humanity is still there. It still beats in his undead chest, I guess. Weird choice of words. Sorry. I'm not a necromancer. I don't know how
whatever hollowed portion of his body where his heart may lie.
I'll get Tim the necromancer on next week and he'll explain it to us.
Right.
The heart doesn't actually beat, it just kind of goes thump every now and again. Thump every now and again.
Even though he's like a stitched together, like walking mass.
Right. Tim, are you a necromancer, or are you yourself like a juggernaut of some sort? Some kind of beast, a dreadnought, maybe. Don't ask me such questions. Anyway. But one of my favorite lines comes from the flashback. I can't remember who said it. I think it might have been Bud from Bud's Buds.
Oh, God, Bud.
I think it was Bud. He said, quote, "Time is the ultimate weapon." Now, this line reminded me of season 1 of The Punisher when it was on Netflix. Frank says pain is just stimuli, signal in, signal out response. What breaks a man, what really gets under the skin, shuts them down, is the time and not knowing how much he has left until something's going to happen, how long he's got left on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of put me in mind of that, in that here's this doofus, this manager's manager, saying something that weirdly has a creepy kind of ring of truth to it. And it felt wasted coming out of this guy's mouth.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, that's kind of like the issue I have with some of the characters is like they'll say things, but it's not well executed.
No.
Especially coming from the person it's coming from.
Yeah. I'm going to move out to the garage for a minute to grab a smoke. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll be on mute for a minute, but I'm listening.
Yeah. I mean, Bud didn't come off as a very sadistic, like, salesman of Vault-Tec that we would think he would be. Like, which there's a portion in which all the other heads of different companies come together. And they're all far more evil than he is and well more calculated.
Yeah. Don't even get me fucking started on that scene. Not yet. We'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
No, what you're describing about Bud and what makes him even more, I think in one way, somewhat more disturbing, is he is the banality of evil.
Yeah.
He is gray, slate, brutalist, corporate evil. The kind of slow-marching, inevitable, rising evil of it's just business. Now, there's a reason why I want to push back against that even as those words come out of my mouth. because that is the kind of underlying sentiment that is used by a lot of resentful, envious, petty-minded little pissants who can't find any success of their own.
Mm-hmm.
There is a measure of truth to it. Unfortunately, there is a kernel of truth in that this is the kind of guy who would probably sell his mother for some stocks in Vault-Tec.
Yeah, for sure. But like I said, like
He's selfish.
compared to others, he's a like pissant compared to the others.
Right. He is quiet, soft, long-term, not evil so much as just neutrality.
Mm-hmm.
He is pure, this is just how it has to be. And that's not necessarily pure evil. It's just kind of neutral.
That's like a neutral evil.
Yeah. Where it's like, okay, you don't want to kill me. You just think it's the easiest way to get to your goal.
Mm.
All right, I have to fight back. Sorry.
It's like, oh, yeah, well, people die. Well, it is what it is. It's how it is in the vault. It's how things happen.
Exactly.
What more can I say?
I loved, though, in the flashback, too, that...
But I mean, Bud, really? The name Bud?
Right. That... Bud. The callback to Codsworth, the voice actor for Codsworth.
I did like that.
Man, I loved it. I loved it. It was one of the things that the casting director on this program, they did it right. They got it right.
Not exactly who I expected for the voice, but hey, it delivered. For me, it did.
Right. And he delivered it beautifully. I don't even know if it was the original voice actor for Codsworth from Fallout 3 from the game. But I don't care. If it wasn't the same actor, even more impressive that he was so spot on. I do like that they kind of explain why all the Codsworths have the same voice when he said he sold the rights to his voice. It's like, that is incorporating something that is happening in our real world into this fiction, but it's done in a small way that really is helpful for explaining the mechanics of how it happens in game.
Yeah.
Kudos, man. That's actually a really well done little bit of flavor technique.
Yeah. I mean, considering all the AI stuff that we have, which don't even get me started on that.
Yep.
That stuff still kind of creeps me out a little bit.
The conversation, though, that the Codsworth actor and that Cooper have, it has some elements of kind of the Red Scare / commie infiltration into Hollywood element throughout it. And I shuddered a little bit in response to this scene with that portion because the show's writers don't seem to appreciate that this concept was not some funny little element of the Fallout universe's world building setup. It was a legitimate socio-political concern to real Americans in that world and in our own world during the kind of era of the 1940s and 50s. It wasn't just something to laugh off. It was a genuine problem in our society and in the pre-war society of the Fallout games. It wasn't something to faff off or flap your hand at. It was a real problem.
Of nuclear fire. And it could happen any day.
Right. There's a reason it's called MAD. Mutually Assured Destruction. Then we go back to, Lucy and Maximus in Vault 4.
Before we even get into the vault, what were your initial thoughts of this vault when they started to kind of pan the camera out to its residence?
Well, I had a
lot of mixed feelings about it.
when I was initially watching it, my first thought was, these are folks who have been, because they said that some of them were from above, were from the outer world.
Right.
So I thought, okay, they've been taking in people who are mutated, and because they're freaks or outcasts from topside society, they've all gathered into this vault. The lighting and the sound design kind of perturbed me because it felt like there was a kind of a tone shift, that these people were inherently either evil or not to be trusted just because they were mutated,
Right.
because they were different. And I wasn't sure how exactly to take that, because it would seem to me that you would expect to see mutations in a world full of radiation.
I wouldn't necessarily say those types of mutations, though, because the only mutants that we ever see in Fallout are like products of FEV or the ghouls or maybe even Deathclaws, which were an Enclave experiment, by the way, or
Right.
results of radiation. But like, these weren't like typical mutations that these people had.
No, these were clearly lab done.
Right.
And I wasn't sure if
Like,
when I
this
was
was like some Marvel type stuff.
when I was first watching the show, I thought, are they turning normal people or the descendants of the original Vault 4 residents into these creatures? Or are they descended from people who were themselves mutated? Is this something that has been was it part of Vault 4's experimental setup, which did end up I initially thought that the least likely explanation, but it turned out that was the explanation as they wrote it, as it developed throughout the episode. These
I was
people
very
are
disappointed
descended.
at the end of this. I mean, I'm not going to get to it just yet, but like the end result of what this vault was kind of disappointed me.
It was kind of a letdown for different reasons for me, I'm sure.
Well, we've already discussed, Maximus settling in with his pit boy and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
That, and, just the residents alone and whatnot. But, like you were saying, like, were these people result of something, some kind of testing or whatever? But then we go into the portion where they start acting kind of weird.
Right, the cultish shit, which at the 15-minute and 30-second mark, first off, really bad character moment here for both Lucy and Maximus. Lucy is showing signs here of trauma bonding with Maximus when she takes his hand. Not a good look. Now, here's the thing. I can understand why this happens, because she is going through a lot of heavy changes in her world perspective. But trauma bonding typically happens between people who have been together through a lot of trauma together, who have had similar prior experiences and prior understandings of the world. When they're going through unified events that are traumatic. That's not how this is set up. Maximus is already from this world full of death, pain, combat, and
I mean, he's pretty much seen it all, like, or, not, I wouldn't say all, but he's seen a lot, enough to craft him into who he is. But that's not for the case for Lucy.
Right. Her bonding to him like this is not psychologically normal, nor is it psychologically typical. So this really breaks for me and sounds like a sour note in terms of characterization. There's been no indication to this point that she would latch to him this way.
Right.
So it comes off to me as kind of taking a little bit away from her character. I didn't
No,
care.
they haven't even like really talked or goofed off or flirted or nothing.
Right.
It's just, oh hey, you want to bang?
Right. She just says, "Do you want to have sex?"
Right.
It's like,
what's your sperm count?
and first, and okay. So he talks about like that thing that'll make my dick explode. You remember back in episode 1, the pilot,
Yep.
where he's kind of staring off into the middle distance, and the camera is hazily focused on some guy jerking off on his bunk in his BDUs and grunting.
Yep.
The guy's dick didn't explode, Maximus. Okay?
It's gonna pop like a
How
hand
are
grenade.
how are you unfamiliar with the biological functions of your body?
He said it's gonna pop like a zit.
How is he this dumb?
I'm fucking weak, man.
Thaddeus deserved the armor more than Maximus if he doesn't realize that sex doesn't lead to your dick blowing off like a rocket.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It pops like a zit. It's gross.
It's inconsistent. It's pointless. It serves no function other than to get a cheap laugh. And I'm sorry, but you are 6 episodes in now. Cheap laughs, not allowed. I'm sorry. If you're trying to get me to take this show seriously, your chances at cheap laughs were in the first couple of episodes. You can throw 1 or 2 in here now and again, but when you try for a cheap laugh here with a character who has seen a bunkmate jacking off, he knows that his dick's not going to explode. How dumb is the character? This is laziness.
That dude was going at it too. He thought he was gonna rip his shit off.
I know. Like the only thing that could have done it better for him is if he had a power fist wrapped around his junk. Oh wait, true to Kaiser. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, with the assistance of Fisto.
Oh.
Please assert the appropriate position.
So it should be this with 911 already dialed.
God.
So Maximus early on, he says to Lucy, these people are a cult, just like any other. His incredulity here is tiresome to me.
Mm-hmm.
He uses his own membership in the Brotherhood as a raison d'etre, yet was a barely functional squire who, let his Lord Knight die before adopting that man's gear and identity. The paranoia on his part isn't entirely ill-founded. I'll grant you that. But there's also kind of a flaw in Max's logic here that Lucy brought up earlier, one that I'm surprised that she hasn't identified aloud at this juncture. She says when they're traveling along the tracks, and this is kind of backtracking a little, but the Brotherhood uses pre-war tech to track and collect pre-war tech. So why isn't Knight Titus more enamored with Vault 4's technology? Why isn't he more interested in it? Why is he so worried instead about getting away from this cult? Shouldn't this be a red flag for her?
That's the thing. I was about to bring that up too, especially when they asked him why he was a part of the Brotherhood.
Yeah.
If you remember when they were questioning him. And he said to get back at the people that hurt me.
Right. Oh yeah. When he's being interrogated.
Right.
He's full of just thoughts of revenge and retribution.
But the mission of the Brotherhood should have been the priority, answer to that question. But then again, maybe they would have took that as a test, be like, well, you're lying.
Right.
And then, the knight behind him probably would have squeezed his head off.
Squished him. Yeah. Right.
make his head explode like you thought his dick was going to explode.
Right. Blow him up like a grape.
Yeah, kind of like what he did to the Raider guys trying to jack his armor. When he squeezed that guy's head.
Yeah, just
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, my thing is, why wouldn't he have said, hey, by the way, the knight that I was with had died to a yaoguai, or a monster, bear. Send a bird here for proof of death, and, go from there. Like,
right. I guarantee Thaddeus would have done that. If he had been the squire assigned to Titus from the word go, not only would Titus not have died, because he would have issued him the stim pack.
right.
But he would have probably radioed in, hey, Knight Titus has been wounded. I have administered a stim pack, but I recommend I recommend evac or medivac back to base
Right.
before redeployment. He would have been a little bit more on the ball about it.
But that was the thing I didn't understand about it. It's like, you probably could have gotten away with just reporting, letting them know, hey, he died. Like, hey, check in and say, hey, here's what happened. I've acquired his armor. I will, continue to do the task, whatever. Or, what's my instruction? Something. And I feel like he would have been awarded just for surviving alone.
Right. He would have been rewarded for surviving. He probably would have been reprimanded for not doing more to save his knight.
But I mean, if you had the proof of death of this yaoguai laying there,
right?
I mean, that's a big thing,
right? And that probably would have earned him his own armor.
That's what I'm saying.
Because the whole going for glory, he wanted it right then and there, right now.
That's the thing, though. Like Arthur Maxon killed a Deathclaw when he was a kid, and got to his position the way he did just by being a brutal son of a bitch.
Yep.
If he had just done that, and he would have been a knight sooner than what he would thought. I think so.
And
they probably would have picked him up the vertibird, picked up the armor, took it back to base, repaired the armor, handed him a laser rifle or whatever gun he wanted, and be like, all right, on to the mission, track down the head, whatever. And it would have been fine, It just, I don't know. You all good over there?
Yeah, just buddy came up to sit in my lap, and let's just say he has a code brown situation, but my wife is about to take care of that situation. I smelled it as soon as he turned around to come sit in my lap. I'm like, wait a minute.
Colin, no.
Get down, buddy.
You sat on your lap and went splat.
Not so much a splat as a squish.
Let's go.
Oof. Yeah, so, just the possibility, the potential of what could have happened for Maximus, I think, would have been, I don't know, better, I think.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know, man. I still just don't like Maximus.
No, and here's where I'm going to do a little bit of a bump forward in order to pull back to that moment and kind of wrap it into this tendency of the character and the majority of the writing staff on this show. At that moment, driven and commanded by his sense of resentment and envy and jealousy and I want what you have, he took what Titus had. He took it not necessarily through force, but by allowing force to have been applied and then just taken the remains. He takes from others in order to have. Gee, where have we seen that before in history? I believe the quotation is, from those according to their abilities to those according to their needs, which is the line utilized by Karl Marx. It's commie bullshit. And it rears its ugly fucking head throughout the remainder of this series in some small and many overt ways. This show has potential, or had potential, and a lot of it got squandered. Absolutely squandered. In terms of technique, storytelling technique cinematically, there was a point where, and it's a small technical kibitz on my part, where Overseer Benjamin, the Cyclops,
Oh boy.
when he's on screen, and throughout the rest of this sequence that he first shows up in, the mutated or altered Vault 4 humans are kind of accompanied by the same kind of brooding overtones as the abominations and mutated animals of the wastelands. And that struck me as a weird oral choice by the showrunners. Humans in Vault 4 who are altered shouldn't get the same musical cues and treatment as monsters out in the wild, I would think. But again, just a small technical kibitz.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, is like, most of the time these vaults would have turned away anybody, no matter what. I mean, like we discussed before, there's literal like drills and whatnot that basically tell them keep what's outside.
Yeah. But now I'm going to launch into, if you don't mind, another bit of commie alert. Whoop whoop. That's right, Avery. Starts at kind of the 20-minute mark when Cooper is talking to his wife, and she says that she's trying to secure them a spot in one of the good vaults.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a tell, tipping her hand to Cooper that there are vaults that are not good. So he's going to have obviously some questions to ask about all that. He wants to know what's going on. But at the 21-minute and 51-second mark, I'm going to go into a bit of a screed here. Charles Whiteknife is being portrayed in this scene as an academic voice of reason, railing against Vault Tech, declaring them evil, which admittedly they kind of are. We know that.
Right.
Not for the reasons that he states. Whiteknife says, quote, the American government outsourced the survival of humanity to a private company, throwing in the concept of fiduciary responsibility. In economics, fiduciary responsibility means ensuring that there are maximal profits for shareholders. Yes, and this is a harping point for a lot of socialists and commie sympathizers. There is this presumption that because of this concept, that all private companies will invariably engage in evil, immoral, and unethical practices just for that bottom line, never once stopping to recognize that companies, just like governments, are comprised of people, human people. Corporations also have to follow regulations and bylaws, unlike the inner party of commie or socialist governments, who always end up getting away with their abuses because they are the inner party setting the regulations and standards. The torturous experiments, the psychological fuckery that Vault-Tec gets up to, playing God with people and treating them like lab rats. That's the deeper, true evil of an outfit like Vault-Tec. And later on, okay, we recognize
Yeah,
that there are
not
other
the corporate greed of
companies
them.
doing it. It's not just the greed. It's not just Vault-Tec. It's West Tech. It's Big Mountain.
Mhm.
It's Robco. It's
Poseidon
Robocon.
Energy.
Repcon. Poseidon Energy. And is there an element of caste system assholery in charging people for salvation in the vaults? Yes, there is. No doubt there is a terrible kind of have and have nots about it. But the answer isn't communism.
Yeah.
Okay. And the shit continues with White Knife. Quote, the cattle ranchers are in charge, Coop. It's this talking point of resentment spewed out of this guy's mouth, and the audience, already primed to despise Vault-Tec for their inhuman fuckery, may very well end up lapping up this horse shite without stopping to question any of it. Maybe there's a silver lining in that. There is something to be said for the abuses of Vault-Tec as a corporation. But this horse shit is becoming blatant in the writing of the show. We can no longer ignore it. It's become overt. They sucked us in along for 5.5 episodes of Joyride. And now that we've been committed to this program, there's only 2.5 episodes left. The audience is left wondering, do I stop watching and admit that this whole thing was a waste of my time and effort, and that I got tricked into getting roped into the start of getting indoctrinated into some commie horse shit? Or do I buckle down and bowl through the rest of it to try and finish analyzing what could have been amazing entertainment and turned into propaganda?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, kid.
Pretty much. That's the thing, though, is like somebody like him would have been experimented on, would have been captured just for spewing those words alone. But the sake of capitalism is like just him living in that country alone has already granted him the freedom to say what he wants to say.
Right.
Like, I just don't, yeah. Had that been in a communist government, he wouldn't have been able to say anything like that.
No.
And there would have been multiple people, with ears reporting it to their fellow, comrades.
Right. Right. To the inner guard.
Right.
Like, you question the party, you disappear. You're
Right.
black bagged. You're gone. Now, there was maybe a silver lining of hope that maybe one or two people in the writers' room, again, had their shit together. Because where do these commie simps end up meeting to discuss their perspective? A funeral home.
Mhm.
How fitting that people who want to push for sympathizing with the Reds, with the socialist/communist Chinese party, that they're meeting to talk over their ideas in a funeral home. Then maybe there's a hint of something there, that the tongue-in-cheek kind of, we talk about this stuff.
That's another thing I was just thinking about, especially with this whole communist thing, is the abundance of Russian weapons that are used in this whole show. And I've seen a bunch of them. From RPDs to PPSH submachine guns to just a numerous amount of Russian weapons, Russian manufactured weapons. And I was like, okay,
Right.
but what are some of these guns even doing over here? Like,
well, in the Fallout lore, hadn't there been actual fighting on American soil?
I guess, but like a majority of those weapons would have been like destroyed.
Okay.
You know,
so yeah, it does then lead to the question: why are they littered all over the show?
Right.
Unless
there
you're
would be like a handful of other guns that were U.S. guns, but like they're not very prevalent. It's mostly Russian weapons. that I had noticed. And then like the Brotherhood are all sporting like Fallout weapons, like the big
Right.
assault rifles that the power armor users were using. The Squires were using like the 10mm pistols and
Right,
stuff.
handguns.
Well,
Like
like the revolver handguns that they were given, you know.
You're gonna
But
send
they were
those
like they were Fallout weapons.
right. You're gonna send those guys into the fray next to these fucking giants in the armor. They're gonna
What
get butchered.
What I'm saying is, these guns that they had were iconic Fallout guns, while their enemies were using full-on Russian guns. So there was a mix of sci-fi guns and real guns fighting each other.
Hmm.
And Moldaver was in charge of the group with the Russian guns.
Right. You have to almost wonder if there may have been some subtle image.
There had to be some form of symbolism there.
Yeah. And I did not consider that angle. That is something for me to consider and think about.
But like there were a couple of guns that I noticed that were like they were American guns. The bars that they were using, which is the Browning automatic rifle, which was a U.S. World War II automatic rifle that the fire teams used. But like I said, majority of the guns were Russian guns. I was like, but where are some of the American guns? Like, I only seen a couple of those. I was like, that's really weird. I would have figured at least maybe. Well, there was the one guy with the Tommy gun when they were getting on top of the guy with the power armor, and the one guy leapt over with a Tommy gun. And he was mowing down the side of the helmet.
Yeah.
So that much I did see, but yeah. Oh, and let's talk about the like, what am I trying to say here? The shortage of energy weapons in this show.
Yeah, I was really curious because anytime I got anywhere near like a major combat area in Fallout 3 or New Vegas or 4, I was getting hit with laser and plasma weapons constantly.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, the Brotherhood sported a lot of laser rifles.
Yeah, like that was their primary weapon. Enclave and Brotherhood, you knew that there was a pulse of red or a ball of green coming at you.
Yeah, but mostly plasma weapons.
Where were they?
The only two I ever seen the whole show was the guy that was at the Enclave base, one of the NPs, was holding a laser rifle. But Moldaver at the very end was coming out, I think was with a laser pistol or laser rifle. I don't remember exactly, but it was a laser weapon because it had that long, blocky barrel to it.
Yeah, right.
But they were never fired.
No, it was just to be seen and not used. Like, oh, that was a waste.
Right. Like, if you're going to show it, I want to see it in action. I want this to fucking vaporize somebody or at least cut somebody's limbs off.
Get someone turned into an ash pile.
Exactly. Turn them into a fucking ash pile.
Or the puddle of goo.
Right.
Oh, I had a sour point too. Back in Vault 4 with Overseer Benjamin. It was just me, or were they again? This was not subtle. When he's talking to Lucy about the people who are part of this like little ritual thing that she observes, the show's writing has him in this moment griping about the surface dwellers who join Vault 4's populace, about their, quote, smelly food and their weird ideas. You're from a vault. You get it, right? He says. But Lucy seems put off by his attitude. She even calls them refugees, where he calls them surfies. There's a touch of jingoism kind of portrayed on him, and it pushed into the character, making me think, are they trying to portray him as like a nationalist? Or there were shades of socio-political messaging on
I see what you mean.
Benjamin.
Like they don't belong here.
Yeah, it was, and he's the overseer, basically a vault president.
But that's
And
the thing, though. If
look
he's
at
been
the lighting.
incorporating all these people,
Right, but
where
look
did
at
he
the
come
light-
from?
Yeah, he's from Vault 4. He's a descendant of the Gulper, remember? He says
Oh,
it
that's
was
right.
he
Yeah,
says
yeah.
it was his great uncle or something. So he's
I was going to
from
bring that up because the Gulper was indeed human.
now. Look at the lighting in the scene where she's talking to him in his office. The bulb over him casts an orangish tint.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately went, motherfuckers, you're making a statement here, a not so subtle message that this jingoist, this isolationist, saying these surfies, they're not like us, being essentially racist.
Mm-hmm.
You're basically calling him Trump. And
I never picked up on that.
like, what the fuck are you people
Oh
doing?
my god, I never picked up on that.
Yes. The Fallout show.
That makes sense now.
The gloves for me at this point came off for
Oh
the rest
my
of the
god,
episode.
bro.
Yeah, it's fucked up because the writers on the show may have thought
Wow.
they were being clever and subtle, but I'm viewing this show as a literary analyst
So I just took a jab. Like, it was like they if
throwing
we
a
were to,
jab,
yeah, like
poking it
if
in
we
the
were to
eyes.
take, like, let's say the current circumstances of today, it's like as if that was like paint off the wall. They just scraped it in and then like boiled it back down into the show, but only in a very, very subtle way, like you just said.
Yep.
But you had to really look
Nope.
at it to pick up on it. But if you did, you knew.
And for me, it was instant because at this point, I've seen so many red flags. Viewing this show as a literary critic, that I can see the
Man.
techniques that they're using from a mile away, and
See,
it's
I was looking at
insulting.
this as a Fallout like lore thing. Like, I was like mainly just looking at him, and I'm thinking, why is there an overseer with one eyeball? Like, that was where my mind was going the entire time. Why are there mutated? Like, I thought I was watching Guardians of the Galaxy with all these fucking different mutated people.
Yeah, there was
Like,
a weird.
what is this shit, man? Because I was so thrown off. I'm like, I get it. You know, there were a lot of like circumstances with experiments and all that. I do, but there are too many differences in all these vault dwellers for this to be, oh, well, now they're all fucking Wish versions of Marvel heroes that nobody wants.
Your Marvel hero from Wish.
Right.
I got to wrap up here soon, so I just want to
Oh.
say briefly on the rest of the episode, it just was a downhill slide from there for me. The messaging of, you know, the whole socialist experimentation rising up into the writing to become obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And then this group of people kind of dancing around ritualistically around this picture of a painting of Moldaver. It's clearly Moldaver.
Yeah.
They're calling her Flame Mother.
Yep.
It's like, okay, so these are people who have been indoctrinated into Moldaver's ideology. It's why they're living together in a controlled command economy kind of setting in this Vault 4, where people are free to come and go as they please, but if they are exiled, they are not allowed to come back, which was a popular punishment in the Soviet states.
Yeah.
That moment, however, was hilarious. You are sentenced to execution by exile. And he brings the thing up and then like starts slowly sawing at her.
Yeah.
At her bindings.
I mean, it was funny, but it really let me down.
It was a cheap laugh. I'm sorry, but again, at this point in the show, you are no longer allowed cheap laughs. At this point, you've done so much damage to the story and to characters who could have been better, that I no longer give a shit about your cheap laugh. I'm now coming for blood, and it's gonna happen.
Well, see,
this-
that's
Yeah,
the
I'm
thing
sorry.
about Fallout 1, though, and like Fallout 2. They start out with a couple of subtle laughs, whatever. You goof off at, like,
We're
let's
about
say
to-
the tribal in Fallout 2, like you laugh about him trying to protect his moo-moos and all that shit. Like, it's goofy moments, but later on you get in the game, it gets more serious. There are no, laughable moments. You get to see the reality of the wasteland and what it, has to offer. So at this point in Vault 4, what I had the issue of with that particular laugh you were just talking about was what I initially gathered from this group of people was vibes of Children of the Cathedral from Fallout 1. This was a mutant cult. They were united in a way.
Okay, I don't
So
remember this.
to me, I was picking up like, oh shit, are we gonna see like a possible mutant army of some kind, and they're just the descendants that are trying to ascend, or not descendants, but they're the people that are trying to ascend to mutanthood or something deeper or darker. Because the way they set this up, when you set up a cult in any fashion, there's got to be some darker meaning to it. But you find out it's just a cheap joke. Oh, hey, you're exiled. Boom. You just ruined the whole fucking moment of that dark moment that it built up until that very moment.
Right. It's such a drop in tone.
It's like a kick in
But
the
again-
nuts. You were blue balled in the thought of, oh shit, this might be a problem.
Right. And again, I turn back to this is pushing or messaging the ideology where exile from the Soviet states was considered a death sentence, but it was also considered the right and humane, quote unquote, way to deal with people who did not want to be part of the Soviet system. And it was portrayed as a good thing. And here in the show, it allows our protagonist, Lucy, to carry on with her mission. So it's being portrayed as a good thing.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're gonna bring in a cult in the
sorry.
wasteland, in a wasteland setting, like
It's wasted. They did waste an opportunity.
yeah, you had such a big opportunity for that. Like, I was thinking maybe they had some form of FEV or whatever, and that's what the result was of, these people being the way they were. Like, maybe they had some centaurs in the back that were going to come crawling out.
Right.
Or, or maybe there would have been a couple mutant brutes that would have walked out.
Right. I mean, for God's sake, you've got the Gulpers came from there.
Right.
They've already demonstrated that there are monstrosities birthed from this place. Those
Right.
piranha things that ate the mother on the video that she gave birth to.
Right.
Ugh. Creepy shit.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this vault had the potential of, hey, this place might be a problem.
Right. And like, was that the thing in the window in the water that she saw? I thought it might have been a Mirelurk.
I'll have to look at that. I'll have to go back and look at that.
But anyway,
Um,
point being, a lot of
we
wasted
do-
potential.
Well, there's still part of the episode we got to bring up, which is the government.
Government. Yeah.
Oh no.
I loved how it was misspelled.
Oh, man.
I also kind of loved that these guys were absolute yokels.
Mm-hmm.
But this
Literal redneck super troopers.
yeah, this was part of where I saw
Fucking aviators and all.
this is where I saw a slight downturn in my holding or standing for Cooper.
Mhm.
Came from this scene. There was an uptick for him when he showed how clever and how much ingenuity he has by sewing Lucy's partial finger onto his own to get his trigger finger back. Clever, good character building there. don't understand the biomechanics of it.
I
how
was
that
gonna
works.
say, like, how is that possible when he's literally a walking corpse?
I don't know. But they've already toyed with so much shit that I'm almost
I
forced
think it would have
to
made
give
more
it
sense
pass.
if he just took like a stim pack and injected it in between there and just sort of like fused back together in a way. But
Right.
like that would have made a little more sense. I'm like, okay, it's kind of
But it
feeling it
works.
back, but yeah.
And in the semiological sense, it works because she is now a part of him.
Yeah.
She is a part of his story. And what she had been a pacifist about, she had refused to kill with that finger. And now he is forcing that part of her to become part of the wasteland.
Yeah.
So there is that semiological element there. Again, one or two skilled writers in that writer's room offering that symbolic meaning, that metaphorical storytelling. But I had a little bit of a downturn, a point to take away from Cooper there, when he basically taunts one of the yokels into making a mistake just so that he can kill the guy. Like, disarm him, knock him out. I could have seen that, sure. But what need was there to kill the guy?
Well, here's the thing though. I get what you're saying, but we've already kind of passed the slope of this is Cooper in ghoul form. Morals only matter to what he thinks matters. These guys are just two wasteland redneck wannabe state trooper cop looking dudes to him. To him, they're just vermin. You know, they're no different than a raider he'll probably shoot later on.
Right, but once he's disarmed them, they're not a threat.
That doesn't matter. He just
Up to
thinks they're a piece of shit regardless.
Right, but so are all the people living in Philly, and he didn't just blow everyone away in Philly. He only killed people who were an immediate threat to him. When Lucy pointed a dart gun at him, he didn't.
He still killed people even further on from the show that still didn't pose a threat.
Right, later on, and again, I would say that takes away from the character as established.
Damn it, Colin.
Turning things in a direction that kind of breaks with character from previous establishment.
I mean, yeah, but like to me, we're not really dealing with a person who's like morally or what am I trying to say here? Like he's not
ethically rigid as he was to where he began. I get
like we're not dealing with a modern day Cooper back in the day before the bombs dropped.
Right. No, I get
where he knows right and wrong. This is
Brother,
wasteland rules.
I really got to wrap it up here in a minute.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying. I'm actually about to wrap it up right there. That's the only thing I wanted to bring up was the government. Because there was a certain point of this that really bothered me.
Oh, what was that?
With the president and all that. But because he had the issue of Cooper going in there and like basically destroying the place.
Yeah.
So my problem that I had with that particular scene was he's like, well, you know, we can't really have you doing that. Ian's like, what kind of example is it set for us? You know, there'll be chaos in the streets. What fucking streets? Where are they at?
Right. Like they didn't establish they were near any kind of civilization.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what streets? Who cares? You were guarding a fucking organ harvesting place. What part of that is law and order?
Right. And I didn't exactly see a whole lot of residences between that super duper mart and the government building.
Right.
Like, who are you governing?
If that doesn't scream corrupt, I don't know what does.
I mean, it's you and Deputy Dipshit and Deputy Dog.
Right.
That's your entire population.
It's you and thing 1 and 2 with you. But that bothered me so bad when he said that. I'm like, who cares? Where is this place?
It's political patter and speech with no political environment.
Right.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. I didn't
But anywho-
understand the connection of him to be a president of who.
Yeah, what?
They didn't even have like an outside shot of maybe like some traders nearby, local populace, or
Right.
maybe
some kind
even
of
I
trading
just
post.
God, it bothered me so bad because that was like so poorly done and executed.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap us up for episodes 5 and 6 today, ladies and gentlemen.
Mhm.
And next time we will be doing the final 2 episodes,
Yep.
which will include a great deal of shouting and screaming and
Oh
cussing
God,
from me,
yeah, and me.
because from here it just gets worse. Like I said last time, if I had to bundle these 2 episodes together and give a review score, we are down from the pilot. I had pegged at about an 8.5, with paired with episode 2, kind of an 8. Episodes 3 and 4, it came down a little bit to more around a 7 for me.
I was at
These
more of
two
a
episodes,
5.
these 2 episodes for me hit a 5. We're at a middling at best. At best. And it doesn't get better.
Also, after we do wrap up these last 2 episodes, I'm sorry, but we gotta talk about the Acolyte. Star
What?
Wars: The Acolyte.
Oh, I haven't watched it yet. And I don't know if I'm going to. I don't know if I want to bother.
No, I don't want to watch it, but
I've heard.
I just want to go over what I've heard.
Yep, I've
That's
heard
all
a
I
lot,
want to go over. I'm not watching that show.
and I have read episode synopses,
Yeah,
and I will say the following: Star Wars is dead.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, from my home here in southern Minnesota, this is ByronOfSidius, also known as better known by my legal name, Joshua T. Calkins Truity. I am on Substack at thestorytellerscorner.substack.com. And if you're looking for a fantasy or horror read, you can find some of my works over on Substack. You can also find them on barnesandnoble.com. Their website does carry a number of my titles. I don't want to push anybody to Amazon, but most of my work is available there. If you can find it anywhere else, buy it somewhere other than Amazon. Don't give the beast of Bezos any of your money if you can avoid it.
Unfortunately, we had
Ladies
to
and
for the
gentlemen,
show.
yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. And this is Cortex. Brother Cortex hosts his show live streaming various video games on his show Cortex Gaming. Cortex G388 or 366.
Cortex Gaming or Cortex G3 or 333. It's
G333.
Cortex Gaming, yeah, 333. But yeah,
And you can-
we should be playing something tonight. I haven't really decided what we're gonna play. The Elden Ring DLC is coming up next week, so I'm gonna try to gear
And I know
towards
you're
that.
looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you've been aiming towards getting that being the focus, hence why you've been playing all the Soulsborne games.
Indeed.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. We ask that you take care of yourselves, and as always, keep an eye out for commie bullshit.
For sure. All right, guys, take care. We're out here. Much love.